This is episode 485 on the 21st of February 2022. The Elimination Chamber, which was supposed to be the last pay-per-view event before their marquee event, which happens every year in the month of April, was just another gimmick which took place. Of course, most of these pay-per-view events are gimmicks, but that's the beauty. That's why they are there. Let's start with the first one. Roman Reigns versus Goldberg. This was supposed to be a marquee match, a clash of generations, which had been hyped for over 2 to 3 weeks. How Goldberg at 55 was making another comeback, how he was mocked for it. And then what happens? It turned out to be a little dampener because it was seen as icon versus icon, legend versus legend, Hall of Famer versus a future Hall of Famer. But as such things happen, as has been seen previously, this match was disappointing because all the hype didn't make it into a match which it was supposed to be. Of course, the age difference, which one doesn't talk about often, did make a difference, but then Roman Reigns did what Roman Reigns does. He used his guillotine submission, which means once the submission is clawed upon the opposition, his opponent can never come back. And then the referee does a 3 count, and if the hand falls limp, Roman Reigns retains his championship. And that's exactly what happened. The guillotine submission is something which has worked over the past 24 months, and it has worked beautifully. And whenever there is a submission maneuver where the opponent either taps out or is knocked out, that's the end of the match. All the hype over the past 2 weeks for this particular match ended in a dampener. But that's what it is, which means that Roman Reigns will face Brock Lesnar in a title versus title match. How did that happen? I'll talk about it as this episode progresses. But if you have seen the progression of all the opponents Roman Reigns has faced from Edge, he went through Edge and Daniel Bryan last year. When John Cena came back, after that, John Cena has not been seen again. His feud with Brock Lesnar has gone a little longer because of the involvement of Paul Heyman. And then Kevin Owens last year, Seth Rollins this year. They have not been able to get through. Maybe that's what the WWE management wants. And as one of the announcers reiterates, nearly 550 days since he's been the champion. I can say it's been longer, since 2019, but that will be in a different record. So this match, which was hyped as something big, ended in a dampener, ended in a bit of a disappointment, but that's the nature of such things. With WWE, you never know why a few semi-retired individuals want to compete again, and when they do, they're not able to go full throttle. Why this happens, the WWE has its own logic, but let's not get into the depth of the logic because that never works. One thing which was interesting was the fight for the WWE World Championship in an elimination chamber match, which started on a somber note because Lashley was knocked out, means Seth Rollins had buckled bomb Riddle into, in fact, Theory into the pod, and Lashley was hit hard and his neck was hit hard. And then the WWE officials came running, which means if they came running, it was not part of the script they had to follow, and Lashley had to be under concussion protocol. Once that happened, it opened doors for Brock Lesnar to just F5 his opponents left, right, and center. And when Lesnar had no credible opponent, with due respect for the likes of Rollins and Riddle and Theory and Styles, Brock Lesnar has created that kind of fear. It's more of fear in the mind than fear as an opponent. And Brock Lesnar had predicted that he would win the World Championship. He had already won the Royal Rumble event, and now it's going to be Brock Lesnar as the World Champion versus Roman Reigns as the Universal Champion, which means Survivor Series kind of an event comes early. All about the superiority. And once upon a time, Brock Lesnar was chided for not being a regular as far as the WWE is concerned after winning his championship. And now something has happened over the past 2 years. Change of gear, change of looks, and then he is a regular. And then he doesn't need Paul Heyman by his side to do what he does best, play mind games. So it will be a very interesting aspect as to how Brock Lesnar as the WWE World Champion and Roman Reigns as the WWE Universal Champion face off. It will be a very interesting thing, but still there is some time for that event, and a lot of things can happen during that. So let's not get carried away by what can happen. Still a long way to go. Then there was a match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship, which never happened because the Usos attacked the Viking Raiders even before the bell had officially rung, and they injured their opponents enough that the match didn't even take place. And that was the end of that. The match did not even take place, which is not a novel thing in such events. It often happens, whether it was by design, default, part of the script, or a bit of kayfabe moment. That is something which the viewers and everyone can decipher on their own, but this is nothing new as far as a match is concerned. And of course, Usos, under the tutelage of their cousin Roman Reigns, have often resorted to means where they don't want to compete with their opponents because they feel that their opponents are so good that they make sure that the opponents are knocked out even before the referee officially rings a bell. And even if they lose on the count of disqualification, they will not lose their title. So sometimes you lose the match but regain your championship. That's been an important mantra as far as the world of combat sports is concerned, except for UFC, which has a totally different ring to it. Moving on to the women's, moving on to another non-title match. Now, this match was more of a distraction away from all the championship matches, all the championship controversies that took place before this match happened. And Drew McIntyre, who has been away from a championship opportunity for a while. And don't be surprised if in that entire month of March, in that entire 5-week period leading up to their so-called marquee event of WrestleMania, he is the next opponent Roman Reigns wants to face. It's Drew McIntyre, the likes of Sheamus and Drew McIntyre could be on that list. Don't be surprised if that happens. But this was just another gimmick which happened to distract everyone from the championship matches, and then he went on against Madcap Moss, falls count anywhere. It didn't happen that much, and then McIntyre using his trusted sword, yes, sword, went on to win via pinfall. Yes, the Claymore kick has worked often, and Drew McIntyre was always going to be the winner even before the match was there, and that's the most interesting part of this entire story. Will Drew McIntyre be the next opponent Roman Reigns faces, or will face, or want to face in that 6 week waiting period? The thing is, you don't know what's on the mind of the WWE management in these situations. Anything can happen, anything goes. It's difficult to come to a conclusion, but yes, I do think that you might see Drew McIntyre after his feud with Madcap Moss and his mentor in Corbin. He might be in the championship contention again. That's quite a possibility. But they've already declared a Lesnar Reigns match. So you, even if McIntyre challenges Roman Reigns for a championship match, McIntyre may not win because they've already hyped up that Lesnar Reigns match. Even if Roman Reigns has to face an opponent in this intervening period, he will retain by whatever means necessary, and then everyone is looking forward to that Lesnar Reigns title versus title and early Survivor Series kind of match. Moving on to the women's division. Now, Lita is another former champion in that semi-retired wrestler league, and just like Goldberg, she returned for another shot at a title, and she challenged Becky Lynch. But what happens? Just like the Goldberg Reigns match, which started with all the hype, all the pre-match promotions, a similar kind of a narrative. I'm here for one more title shot. My age has nothing to do with what I can do. This match had more interest because it was close, pinfall after pinfall, moonsaults, arm bars, but eventually Becky Lynch retained her title as it was expected for her to retain that title. And then you may not see Lita again in the championship contention because this was a one-off match, just like the Reigns Goldberg match, and this was always going to end in a situation where the generational thing, where they had classified as a generation versus generation, as a mentor versus mentee, as someone whom you grew up watching kind of a match. When most sports athletes say that I grew up watching this particular player and now I'm playing or competing against this particular athlete. Well, maybe in sports, this I grew up watching someone as my idol works, but not in every profession. Sports, it can happen, but in other professions, it doesn't happen. I'll talk about the later, but a match which was close, but eventually one who had to retain the championship. Now, just like the men's elimination chamber match, here it was the women's elimination chamber match where the winner would go on to face the Raw Women's Championship at their WrestleMania event. And then all 6 individuals involved were equally capable of winning. Some of them are even former champions. Some of them have taken the current champion and former champion to the limit. But you can take your opponent to the limit. You can grind them down. You can run them hard. But if you don't win, it won't be considered. Yes, winning, losing does tend to make a difference. And then who eventually wins? Bianca Belair. Why? Because she was the last athlete out of the court. It means she had valuable time as she saw her opponents grind each other out, tire each other out. And when that happens, and you are the freshest competitor, you can take advantage of that tire. When you're thrown from the top, when you're thrown from the top of the cage onto the mat, where Your body falls at a rate of knots, where even the best of Newton won't be able to decipher the speed at which the body falls. And when you come and you see them battered and bruised and struggling, you take advantage of that, and that is exactly what happened. And then she beat an equally strong competitor in Rhea Ripley, and now will be in her second WrestleMania main event facing Becky Lynch, unless Becky Lynch is forced to find another competitor in that intervening period. As I said, anything can happen in the month of March as far as the champions are concerned. Brock Lesnar may be asked by Bobby Lashley that he was taken out in circumstances that were not under his control, so he deserves another title shot. Anything is possible. You never know what can happen in this 1 month intervening period. Another non-title match was the one between Ronda Rousey and Naomi taking on Sonya Deville and Charlotte Flair. This match full of past rivalries, current rivalries, taking the rivalry up to a personal level, which is the way it works in this profession. You take it personal. You make sure that you mentally torture your opponent. That Ronda Rousey is not a tag team kind of athlete, but this was a very different situation, and she did exactly what she was supposed to do with one hand tied behind her back, and this was supposed to be a precursor to what would happen when Ronda Rousey would challenge Charlotte Flair for the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship. And as expected, Naomi and Ronda Rousey went on to win. Will this have any implications going further? One doesn't know. But somehow non-title matches where you see the two challengers face each other through tag team, but they don't face each other for a long time, can have an effect as going further. One doesn't know what will happen in this particular match. Anything is possible. In the Ronda Rousey Charlotte match, you may see at WrestleMania all champions except maybe the Lesnar Reigns story defend their championship. You may see new champions emerging, an entirely new champion group coming, which means the current incumbent lot may lose their respective titles, or they may go on to retain their respective titles. That's something which we can't take a guess, because it's very difficult to take a guess, but anything is possible in this particular sport, and that's how it is. Talking about the possibilities in the women's division, India once again made a good score of 279, though I think they could have made more, at least 290, after you make 100 runs in 13 overs. But if the rest of the team only scores 179 runs in the next 37 overs, which means the efforts of the openers were not enough, because 100 runs in 13 overs is a huge deal in the women's game. It doesn't happen. But the middle order, except for the all-rounder Deepti Sharma, once again, Harmanpreet Kaur and the captain Mithali Raj were unable to capitalize on this situation and continue that momentum. And that's exactly what everyone is talking about. Everyone has said we need to move on from Harmanpreet Kaur. I think Harmanpreet Kaur has a long way to go. But maybe what can be done is selectors can say, I'm sorry, Mithali Raj, you may be 13.5, you may be in that legends group, it doesn't matter to us. You are not contributing. You are making 50s, but you are batting slow. 50 or 70 is not going to be good enough. Your strike rate of 80 in the 50-over game and the women's division game is considered to be perfect, but not for me. 279 was good, but they lost too many wickets. And then once again, when New Zealand had lost 2 wickets in the first fielding restrictions power play, the Indians did not push it. They allowed partnerships. They allowed when they were 170 for 6, meaning 100 runs of the last 14 overs. You thought the game was in India's bag, but they allowed their number 6, 7, 8 to have a partnership. Boundaries kept coming at a premium, and the Indians were unable to control it. As it is, the boundary ropes are already 10, 12 meters inside from the hoardings. The grounds are not very big compared to most grounds where men play. And then when that happens, you just have to penetrate the inner ring, the inner circle, pass cover, pass the likes of mid on, mid off. And once that happens, unless you have a fielder there, it will result in the boundary. And that's what New Zealand did. Yes, a couple of dropped catches can also make a huge difference. With no DRS available, that can also affect the players, which is wrong because the DRS will suddenly be available in the World Cup because that tournament is managed by the international cricket body. This tournament is a private one, so sometimes boards don't want to open their wallets too much or give contract to companies who would be ready to open their wallet, or they give contract to companies who partially open their wallets as far as technologies and making sure that the game happens in a fair manner is concerned. 3-0 loss to India, I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think this 3-0 loss affects their World Cup chances because we have seen teams losing matches and yet going on to win World Cups. Even if it's about momentum, once this tournament finishes, there will be a couple of warm-up games for the women's team. So this was a good enough warm-up game, but in the warm-up game, all the 15 individuals can be involved. You can substitute. You can have players when ready. That's my question is, why do you have this substitution rule and all the 15, 20 members involved in the squad allowed to play? Why can't this happen in an actual match? Because if it does, then you can have the X factor substituting for another player. If you are batting, you can substitute you can get in your all-rounder for a bowler. When you are bowling, you can get in one extra bowler to replace the all-rounder, and that all-rounder gets a chance when they are fielding. Undue advantage? No, it's a level playing field. Otherwise, what's the logic of warm-up matches? Because in the 2021 World Cup, India won the warm-up matches, didn't make a difference. And where do these warm-up matches happen? They happen in grounds which are unknown, which don't really have that kind of connection. They are empty. They are basically training grounds, university kind of grounds, not your proper international ground. So I don't see the logic of warm-up ever. It just doesn't put me in that category. But moving on to the men's division game, in the two matches that India played, they scored 180 plus. And of course, the theory is that even if India has gone on to win the series 3-0, it can't be given that kind of a traction because it's against a weak team. That's my question is, what is a weak team? Who is a weak team? Is it losing so many matches? Is it not having the past superstars? Who defines the superstar? Who was Chris Gayle? Nobody. Till the Indian T20 Domestic National Cup happened, Chris Gayle was just another player in the West Indies team, not seen as something special. Once he played the tournament, he made runs, he was hitting sixes, which brought people close to him. I think in the third game, West Indies started slowly, chasing 180, and then had to accelerate. And they fell short by 8 runs because the 18, 19, 20th over had brought some control with experienced bowlers. In yesterday's match, India once again scored 184, and once again, Venkatesh Iyer was the common denominator in all of three. In the first match, becomes at 100 for 4, takes the team to victory at 160 for 4. In the second match, he once again comes at 100 for 4, takes the team to the partnership with Vishnu Pant. In the final match, in yesterday's match, he once again comes around 90 for 4 after 12 overs, and then he and his partner Suryakumar Yadav combined in a 90-run partnership in 6 overs, and they take the team to 180. And of course, the question of all-rounders, of course, Hardik Pandya is on the radar, so not on the pseudo selectors radar, which I really don't care about. If he's not on the radar, then all-rounders like Jadeja, Washington Sundar, Akshar Patel, Venkatesh Iyer, which position should one bat on? I think I like when Rohit Sharma went from 1 to 4. I don't mind it. Yes, he didn't make once. And then Rohit Sharma has been opening for so long, for nearly 10 years, that it's difficult to see him at any other position, and then controversies galore. But I think the two games were good. In this match, West Indies started off on a very fast-paced note, but then they lost steam, they lost petrol, they lost wickets, and it was up to Nicholas Puran to take them through. But it was almost a mirror image, deja vu kind of situation where he chased a wide delivery and it was consumed and galloped by the fielder. And then the rest of the lot, the interesting thing is we are so enamored by the West Indies team. They hit 1-6 and we say, wow, look at the power hitting. Needs another 6. Wow. Wow. We pretend to go into this wow story, which I find to be extremely ridiculous and extremely shameful. You hit 1-6 and you think the team match is in your favor. You get out next ball and you say, why can't these people think and take singles when the ball is not supposed to be in the hitting zone? But then I will not call them a weak team or a team in transition, because right now every team who has players above 34 and 35 will want to slowly put them on the back burner and get a couple of younger 25-year-olds. Every team is trying that in their own capacity, but I would not, contrary to what the popular saying is, they are not a team in transition. That's a misnomer. They are not a weak team, because what defines a weak team? I don't know. India was a weak team once upon a time. India was a weak team full of incompetent, unskilled players from the years 1999 till 1999-2000. In that 10-year period, it was the most unskilled, inexperienced players, full of egos, zero talent. The bowlers were also, well, they didn't have that pedigree in my viewpoint, and they will never have that pedigree in my viewpoint. That's the big deal, because I say so.
It's 10:30.
this ends episode number 485 on the 21st of February 2022. Stay tuned for the next episode. And I will be back with episode number 486 on the 23rd of February 2022. And what should you do while you wait for the next episode? As always, don't forget to add these books in your must-read books column. Don't forget to add these books in your must-read books column.